are tuned to ARP on the Accelerated Radio Network. It's 12 noon, and it's time to have lunch. Lunch with the Finance Bunch. Lunch with the Finance Bunch. Lunch with the Finance Bunch. Bringing money talk you can understand. And now here's your host, Miss Charlene.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Today, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlene, as you know, and I'm your host for Lunch with the Finance Bunch. And today in studio, I have Mr. Mike Browoleith. And Mike is a farmer's insurance agent who is going to answer all of our questions about insurance, everything that we don't know about insurance and are afraid to ask, or don't know to ask. Mike.
It's a tall order.
That's right.
I'll do my best.
I think you'll do really well.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to know, for the listening audience, I'd like for them to get a pen and a piece of paper and, write down their questions if they have any, and they can text me, or they can reach me at acceleratedradio.net, and they can reach me at 323-238-0445 if they want to, ask a question. So, getting back to you. So, first question, how did you get into the insurance industry? I always ask my guests what interests them in life they get into the business. So, what was it for you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And that's a really good question. So the short answer is it provided me an opportunity to become my own boss. The long portion of that question is I was in the manufacturing, distribution, and transportation industry for about 15 years. When the economy turned down, I suddenly found that what I did wasn't in as demand as I would like to have been. So I went on a journey to try to find a job in doing the same thing that I've been doing. And after quite some time of going through interviews and talking to different people, I found that the marketplace was telling me that perhaps it was time for me to move on. So I started to look around at other opportunities. This is the third time that somebody has spoken to me about getting into the insurance industry. It happened 2 other times in my life. And so I decided that this was the time to take a look at it. I have a brother-in-law in Pennsylvania who's an insurance agent for a rival company.
Okay.
And he has great success. And so I called up my sister and talked to him, talked to her, and thought, okay, this is something I can do.
Wow, I like it. Now, were you a little apprehensive? What was your thought process like? Because, I know when I go into something new, even if I jump right into it, I have my reservations, my apprehensions, really my fear. I wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh my God, what did I do? This is brand new. So how was that for you, getting into a brand new industry? Because you really reinvented yourself, is what you did.
Yeah, well, it's horrible, to be quite honest with you, because it's a scary thing, right? So the first thing that you realize is, do I have transferable skills from all the other stuff that I've done? So I've always been a pretty good talker. It's probably no shock to you.
Not at all.
Thank you. And I think I relate to people well, and I've been told by many people with the different companies that I work for that I'm pretty good about teaching people different things, like the industry that we're in, or the different functionalities of the departments that are in. So when I looked at this opportunity, I wasn't concerned about learning the stuff. I wasn't concerned about learning about insurance or speaking to people. My big thing was always about the marketing and promotion, because it's easy to talk to people you know. It's easy to talk to people who know somebody. The way to succeed in this business is you have to reach that vast amount of people that you don't know, that don't know you, and that's the only way you have sustainable success. And that's still the challenge to this day. It's to find those people that don't know you.
Exactly. And within the insurance industry, I know, you have niches and things that you focus on primarily. And what is your niche and what do you primarily focus on? I know you can do, all of the insurance products, pretty much. But what do you focus on, and what type of insurance do you primarily talk to people about?
Great question. So I'm fortunate enough to work for Farmers, which is a multi-line company. A multi-line company means essentially we sell a vast array of products and goods. So to begin with, it's the whole property and casualty side. So that means, for instance, buildings and cars and your house, your condo, your toys. So those people who have, an ATV or a a wave runner.
Mhm.
I just dated myself. So things along those lines, we can insure all those. Also, Farmers has a whole line of business insurance products. So we can walk into a business and we can insure the building. We can insure the contents of the building. We can insure liability claims against that business under certain circumstances. We don't necessarily like every risk out there, but we can do that. Personally, I also am involved with, I have a securities license, and Farmers, of course, also sells life insurance, which we do. So there's a whole wide range of insurance products that we can offer. Workers' comp is one. We have access to offer people flood insurance if needed. Of course, we're in California, so we have earthquake insurance needs, absolutely. So we can offer that through the California Earthquake Authority. So it's great to work for a company where I can pick and choose which directions I want to go in. Right now, I haven't eliminated any. So I'm trying to keep an open mind as to what I like to do. So I enjoy it all for right now. I'll probably become more focused over time in certain segments. And then I'll have, within the agency, I'll have other staff members that will handle different aspects that I don't necessarily want to focus on myself.
So you'll grow a team. So you truly are like a small business owner yourself.
Well, it's
really.
an agency.
And you're right, and you're your own boss. And you can you have agents that work under you that kind of report to you?
That is the ultimate goal. So
Okay.
an agent that works underneath you is what we call a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have multiple producers underneath you, you're doing pretty well because they're out there they're actually licensed by the state and can actually sell the different products that we offer. So if you don't have a insurance license, you can't sell insurance products.
Right.
You can answer the phone, you can do some of the paperwork, you can, of course, make telephone calls on behalf of the agent, but ultimately to have a producer, that's what you want. Now, the flip side of that is a producer is successful, guess what happens? Well, yes, but once the producer becomes successful,
They leave.
they open their own agency,
Of course.
which is great. So that just means you're constantly looking for those people who are good producers, confident, well-educated in what we do, because there's a ton of continuous education, both required by the state and by Farmers itself. So that's a big challenge. So you find those producers and you keep and you help them go on to better things, but then you have to find replacements.
Now that brings up a question for me. So if I go on the internet, it's the middle of the night and I decide I need earthquake insurance or homeowners insurance or my motorcycle needs to be insured,
Glad to hear you ride.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But anyway, if I had a motorcycle, and I just go on, how you go on those, you click on and
Sure.
put my little information in, and they hit me with a quote, and I give them my credit card, and I'm done. How do you think about that? I mean, what are the pros and cons of that? Because you're an expert in this field, so what am I actually doing when I do that?
That's a great question. So I believe, working for the company that I work for, that there is absolute value, huge value, in actually having a professional agent. The internet's a wonderful thing for buying certain goods and services. It's actually a credit to those companies that are internet-based and 1-800 number-based, that they're making insurance available to the masses in a way that allows the system to make sure that as many people are covered as possible.
Right.
The drawback on that is this. Insurance is one of those things where I believe, in my experience, everybody has heard about it. Most people have interacted with it. But most people are not comfortable to admit that they don't really understand the nuances. Quite frankly, I can't blame them. I understand what you do as a mortgage lender, but I'm not a mortgage lender. I don't know how to do that. So what I tell people is, look, unless you're going to invest the time to get a license and the continuing education and get appointed with a big company, you're not expected to know this stuff. So it's okay if you're not exactly sure what all the insurance terms are, because we love TLAs, 3-letter acronyms. We have a bunch of them. And so if you don't know what those are, they're meaningless. So for people who go out and they shop for their own insurance, if they're looking at a declaration page that shows what they currently have and they're trying to do an apples-to-apples comparison, that's okay. But you really want to be able to understand what is it that you're purchasing? First of all, what are the requirements? What do you have to have? What does the
Right.
state say you need for the car? What does your lender say that you must have for your home? What is the value of the home? What is the value of the business in terms of the building? If you don't know what those things are, it's very difficult to pick a number.
Right, because I remember leasing a car versus purchasing a car. The requirements for insurance were vastly different.
Absolutely.
Completely different. And I wouldn't have known that had I not, divulged and went to, a reputable insurance agent.
That's right.
like
So
that.
in an instance like that, it's a difference of ownership.
Right.
So the leasing company, the dealership owns the car. You're just paying them to use it on a monthly basis. When you buy the car, even though the lending company's lending you the money, they're saying it's yours. If you don't have something called gap insurance,
That's another one. Please talk about
Okay.
gap insurance. I hate to just jump around, but gap insurance is so important. Could you please elaborate on what gap insurance is and what it does?
basically is addressing what happens when the car, where the loan for the car is of a certain value, but the car itself is no longer at that value. So for instance, we'll keep the numbers nice and round. You buy a $40,000 car, okay? We all know what happens the moment you drive the car off the lot. Depreciation, so the value is going to go down. So that $40,000 car, by the time you get it to your first traffic light, is now worth, let's say, $36,000. Again, just throwing out numbers. If by the time you get to the next light, you have an automobile accident and that car is completely totaled, and of course you're fine. But the car is totaled, what's going to happen is the insurance company is going to hand you a check for the depreciated value of the car, $36,000. Problem is you owe $40,000 on the loan.
Wow.
And you don't have a car. So the $4,000 difference between the $40,000 loan and the $36,000 that you receive from the insurance company is a gap in coverage. If you purchase something called gap insurance, there is no gap. So gap insurance then assures that if something happens to the car where the value of the car for the accident is not the same value as the loan that you took out against it, that the insurance company will make sure that that gap is not your financial responsibility.
Right, because I have a quick story. Girl who does my hair bought a brand new beautiful car, parked it on the street, went to bed that night, got up in the morning, drunk driver, wiped the car out with a total. And, she gets up in the morning, and this is 6 months after buying the car, and there's no car, pretty much. And so she had gap insurance, thank God, and she was able to, recoup the entire cost of the car, so that now that she's in the market for a car again, she's at zero. She doesn't owe the finance company additional money. So, gap insurance was one of my questions, and another question I had is how do you know if you're overinsured, underinsured? We had a question like that come up where I just got a text from someone who's telling me that they had insurance on their, renter's insurance and car insurance, and then they came to you to get an evaluation, and they had too much of one and not enough of the other one. Could you kind of explain that?
Sure. So again, this is where I think having a professional agent really comes into play. So if you were to go out to the internet and you purchase automobile insurance, and then a couple months later you decide you don't like how much you're paying for homeowners, and you go out and you check prices, you may not be taking advantage of the fact that the same company is insuring you, and a professional agent's looking over it. They can make sure that rather than having two puzzle pieces that don't fit, that they're interlocking them, that the coverage makes sense. So in a case like that, what we would look at is simply this. If you have, first of all, we have to identify the need. So if you're a renter, you do have a need for renter's insurance. There's a couple of different reasons why, and I can touch on that in a bit. But you then have a home to it. First of all, you want to make sure, the automobile. You want to make sure that you're getting discounts on both products, because now you have two. Secondly, you want to make sure that you understand the difference between where any potential liability starts and ends with the car, and where any potential liability starts and ends with the renter's insurance. I'll give you for instance. If you have liability coverage through either a renter's policy or a homeowner's policy, that covers you if you're outside of the home. So I live in the Valley. If I'm here in Los Angeles and I walk out of the store and I bump into somebody and I knock them down and I break their arm, my renter's policy liability will pay for their medical damages if I'm found to be at fault. Not just here in California, if I'm back east visiting my mom in Florida, if I'm back visiting my friends in New York or
Hi,
family.
Mom, by the way.
Oh yeah, hey Rose. But it covers you everywhere. The liability on your car only covers you when you're in the car. So you cause an automobile accident, you're covered.
Right.
So there's a big advantage to make sure that that you have liability coverage for the majority of the time when you're not sitting in a car. Now, some people, like the two people at this table, spend an awful lot of time in their cars.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But for regular folk who don't spend 8 hours a day in the car, or it seems like 8 hours, it's always a good idea to have that level of liability coverage. So that's what you want to look at. So a professional agent would sit down and say to you, all right, here's what you're covered for on the home or the condo or the renters. Here's where your coverage is for your automobile. And then in a lot of cases, there's something called a personal umbrella policy. That's where we would take an overlying policy, a policy that would add another $1 million on top of the liability coverage in the car or the home. And something like a liability coverage, I can't speak for all, umbrella policy, I can't speak for all companies, but at Farmers, that's less than $300 a year for $1 million additional coverage.
Wow.
That means you sleep like a baby all night, because if you do anything that causes damage in your car, if you really seriously hurt somebody, if somebody comes over your house and gets hurt, if a girl selling cookies comes to your doorstep and trips and falls and she suffers serious injuries and you get sued, you're not only going to have the liability that's part of the home, you get an additional $1 million on top of it. So it's really important that with a professional agent to sit down and explain to you how the pieces fit together, where you may have gaps, and where there's opportunity for a reasonable amount of money to really give you that kind of coverage to where you can go about your life and not really worry about really exposing yourself financially.
Well, I'll tell you this, you have just probably frightened a lot of people and have them sweating. So you should give your phone number and where they can find you at so they can sit down and have that talk with you to make sure they're covered properly and get the education they need about insurance and how important it is, which is why I'm doing this show today, because I think we don't talk enough about the things that are important and we talk too much about the things that aren't important. And this is very important. So tell us, how do we get in contact with you?
Well, the easiest way to get in contact with me is call my office number.
Okay.
I'm actually going to give you my cell number because I give it to all my clients. It's on my card. It's 818-835-0456. It's the easiest way to do it. They're also welcome to send me an email at any time. My email address is the letter M, BROWOLEIT @farmersagent.com. Don't forget the S in Farmers.
And so, just for the phone number again, could you give us the phone number
Yep,
again?
sure. It's area code 818-835-0456.
Thank you. I think you're going to get a lot of calls.
But I'm glad to help people. I tell people all the time, you know, in a way, I've been sort of on the soapbox since I've gotten into this industry. It concerns me that people spend money on a product like insurance, and in many, many cases, they don't really understand what they have and why they have it. And so I tell everybody I run into, let me do a review. And about 20% of the people that I do a review for ultimately do business with me, but that means that 80% don't. But if I can help them in any way just feel better about what they have, or to understand what they have better, that's what I'm here for.
Tell us about the dinner situation the other night you told me about earlier, about the lady who had house turned down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The one from yesterday.
Yeah,
So,
one from yesterday. Yeah, tell that story on air. I want everyone to hear that.
it was great. So I went out to dinner with a couple of friends, and they invited along a colleague. It was kind of like a little networking group of people that just get together and have dinner. So, you know, you always want to have people that you don't know. And I'd never met this woman before, and she's a former journalist. She's starting a marketing company. And so the question was, so what are you doing? So I started talking to the group about Farmers Insurance. I said, you know, my big thing is I can't emphasize enough having a professional review of the products that you have. And so dinner came and we were all talking, and a couple people excused themselves and made phone calls, and I was sitting there at the table with her, and she said, you know, I have to tell you this story. She said, 5 years ago, my house burned down, and it was a complete loss. And when the insurance agent, when the adjuster and insurance agent came out, I had a $75,000 shortfall in the coverage.
Which means she was $75,000 outside of what she needed to have that house rebuilt.
The cost to rebuild her home back to its current condition was, there was a gap of $75,000, which means she had to come up with that money.
That's right.
Now, where I come from, $75,000 is real money.
Where I come from, $75,000 is real money.
Actually, where I come from, $75,000 will buy you the house. So that's
That's not
where-
California. That's
no,
another day,
Yeah,
another
that's
story.
South Jersey.
Exactly, okay.
So in that case, that was a huge financial burden, right? So she's looking at a pile of embers, and now she's got to figure out, okay, I can get this house done. I can get, 3/4 of the house built. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking 3/4 of a house is not like a whole house.
It's like no roof.
Yeah, so which
no-
part do you skip, right?
Right.
Roof, or no bathroom, or maybe you have just
No
a little...
back wall.
No back wall,
Right.
that's a good, no
They can't
basement.
see it,
Yeah, don't
so.
put it on a slab, it just floats.
Exactly.
So obviously what she had to do is she had to go out and take a larger loan, so now she's got a huge, much bigger loan on a home that is not exactly what she paid for.
Right.
So she said to me, she has since gotten out of that predicament, and she has a new home that she bought last year, and she stays awake every night because she is so frightened at the thought that she does not have enough coverage. But the flip side is, with her current agent, she doesn't trust anybody in the industry
Right.
because she thought that she was covered. It turns out that she wasn't when she needed it the most, because we make a pledge to you. You give us a little bit of money every year, and if something happens, we're going to make you whole. So she gave the money that she was supposed to, and she was left with a big donut where her home should have been. So she asked me, can we get together next week? Can we actually sit down and do my reviewing my policy? I said, absolutely. Now, I don't know if we're going to do business. If I were to make a guess, I'd say no. But if I can help her understand what she has, where I think maybe she needs to go, and then she can go back to the company that she's with and say, I talked to somebody that's outside of your company, and here's what we're looking at, I'm concerned in these areas, and get them addressed, then hopefully she can rest
Sleep
easy
at
every
night.
night. Absolutely.
Exactly, because right
Absolutely.
now she's probably very nervous, because that's a big, like a big burn.
Of course.
You lose a whole house.
That's a good one.
I
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah,
like that.
that was good.
I thought you like that.
Yeah. I know what you have to go through to become an agent, and that's just someone dropping the ball. That's, that's not spending the time with the customer to sit down and address things and make sure that they're covered. Farmers has a way to address some of that. We have this thing called extended replacement, where there's an automatic amount built in every year on the homeowner's policy. So if you redo your bathroom and it increases the value $8,000, we don't have to change anything, you're already covered. But after a couple of years, we want to make sure, every couple of years, we want to come out, take a look at it, maybe run it through the valuation system again, just to make sure that there's enough coverage if something happens, that you get that house back exactly the way it is.
Okay, so let me recap. So you will speak to a person who doesn't have insurance and talk to them about their insurance needs. You will evaluate a person who is already insured to let them know where they may or may not need to add, or maybe they already have what's good. So you'll look at someone's existing policy and let them know whether they're in good shape or not.
Oh, sure. I think any good agent will do that. I have a friend of mine in Long Island. I looked at her policy 6 months before Superstorm Sandy
Yes.
wiped her out.
Yes.
And it hit right outside of her apartment or her condo. There was 6 feet of standing water. She lost her car. Her car was under seawater. It was 2 feet under seawater. And she had the right insurance, and an agent did a good job. Farmers is not in New York, so she had a different company. But she had asked me to take a look at this stuff, and I did just a look at it. Didn't have to make any changes. She felt good about that. And when she needed it, she was made whole.
And so if you have a client that's working with you, you also go back and reevaluate their needs every few years just to make sure they're in good shape.
Well, my company encourages to have something annually called a Farmers Friendly Review. We have different ways where we go about doing that. And so I always make the offer to people. It's not something that some people can do. Sometimes we can do it over the phone. It's best if it's done in person. But things change in life all the time. So you want to sit down and you want to see what's going on in their life. They may have, you know, hopefully they've told you if they've changed cars or something along those lines, but to go in and
That's
eyeball,
important.
yeah, it's important, to eyeball the home, and maybe there's something different that within the family structure itself. So you just want to make sure that whatever they're paying for is still adequately covering them, and that you know, they're also not overpaying too. That's also a very important thing.
That's good. That's good. Give them your phone number again.
My phone number is 818-835-0456.
I like it. I'll write that phone number down. Anybody listening should write that number down and come to you for an evaluation of what they have, if nothing else, and get started and get their insurance taken care of. So if you're renting, you need insurance. That was a big
Absolutely.
point here. If you're renting, if you own a car of any size, style, shape, or form, you need coverage. And the whole thing about the renter's insurance that stuck with me is that you're covered inside and outside of your apartment.
It's the big thing with renters insurance. What renters don't have typically is liability coverage.
Liability
That's what you
coverage.
end up missing.
Right.
And the liability portion is if you hurt somebody or someone gets hurt. Now you can't walk around hurting somebody just because you have renters insurance. It's if something is if you inadvertently hurt somebody. So again, in case you're walking down the street, you bump into someone elderly, they fall down and get hurt, and it's your responsibility. Your liability for your home, your condo, your renters will step in and take care of that if you get involved in a lawsuit or other fun stuff.
That's great to know. We also have Lisa Shaver, who has joined us in the studio. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Charlene. Great to be here.
Good. So Lisa is in a different type of insurance, and she's going to talk a little bit about that. And so, Lisa, you wanted to give us, you know, how did you get into insurance? What company are you with? Give us some intro.
Well, just to add to what Mike was saying, I went through and I had a fire at my office. My office burnt down several years ago, in fact. And so I know firsthand what that's like. Your friend that you were talking to the other day. And if you don't have that kind of renter's insurance, even on an office, whether it's your apartment or your office that you're renting, something called subrogation happens. Mike, you know what that is?
Subrogation, yes.
I want to know what that is. I don't know what subrogation is. We don't know.
They say, even though you've lost everything, we are going to come after you for X amount of dollars. In my case, they wanted about $70,000.
The insurance company has the right to go back and collect the money or attempt to collect the money from the person who caused the damage. And let me give you a quick scenario, okay? You're renting an apartment, you don't have renter's insurance, okay? You're cooking in the kitchen, you get distracted by something on television, it's Monday Night Football, the Eagles are kicking butt, go Birds.
You know what?
Yeah.
I did not say you could have that little
Sorry.
club for the birds.
Yeah,
or
you know
bees,
what?
or whoever you talked about.
That's all Eagles fan, okay, it's a curse, I know.
Go ahead.
So you get distracted by it, and you don't realize that a grease fire's broken out. Okay, now your kitchen gets torched for about, let's just call it $30,000 worth of kitchen damage. So it's the cabinets, everything's got to be replaced. You get out, thank God, you're okay. Here's what's going to happen. The policy that's on the building that the landlord owns is going to fix that damage, right? Because the building got damaged, he's paying his insurance, they're going to fix it. And it's going to cost him 30 grand. Then the insurance company's going to say to the landlord, by the way, exactly what happened here? And the landlord's going to say, oh man, Charlene, she's crazy. She was cooking, her favorite football team was on, she got distracted, and she didn't realize a fire broke out. She's great, she's been here forever, she's a good tenant, don't do anything. The insurance company's going to say, well, you can't stop us, because when you get an insurance policy, you sign away the right. You cannot prevent the insurance company from subrogation. So the insurance company's going to hand you a bill for the money that they spent to fix the damage that you caused.
So in other words,
That was already paid for by the home.
By
Yes.
the owner. So
so your renter's insurance covers you and your things, right? But then it also covers you in this case where the insurance company of the building owner had to have some replacement and fixing, and instead of them coming after you personally, your insurance will cover that.
they'll step right in.
So renters, you need insurance too. do, because a lot of renters don't think they need insurance.
And
They
it's
don't.
dirt cheap, but there's really no reason to get it. It's dirt cheap, but
No
I
reason
can
not to
tell
get
you,
it.
yeah.
I mean, you're talking somewhere in the order, depending, it's all done by zip code, right? So it's all
Right.
done based on where the property is located. There's a couple other factors that can come into play, but to get a basic renter's policy that doesn't worry about your stuff per se, but just covers you for liability, is anywhere from $9 to $13 a month. So it's pretty
So
inexpensive.
From $9 to $13 a month, you can cover
$100,000 in liability. And that covers if somebody's at your place and gets hurt, if a stranger knocks on the door and claims they got hurt, you're walking down the street in a different city and you hurt somebody, or you inadvertently cause damage to your place, or by the way, your neighbor. So let's say that apartment fire breaks through the wall and goes into your neighbor and you destroy $45,000 worth of his goods and private property. You don't pay for that.
all watching movies with football, all of that.
Not bees, birds,
Whatever.
eagles. They're eagles. They're not wasps.
Whatever.
God, am I the only pro football fan in this room?
I think so.
I think so, yeah, sorry.
Okay, never mind.
Basketball's
It is
another
not-
story.
it's not
but,
America's game.
Football.
So when a person says, I have full coverage, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
That always scares me.
Why?
I get a little bit of a heart flutter when that happens.
What is full coverage?
Because generally, when I start asking questions, they really don't have full coverage. They're not even sure what full coverage really means.
Well, do you know what it means?
Do you know what it
I have no
means?
idea what it means.
I don't either.
No, I don't. People say
You two are the insurance
I don't know what it
experts,
means.
and you don't know what full coverage means. If I told you,
Yeah.
I don't need either one of you. I have full coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know what that means.
No.
I don't know what that means either, do
The
I?
reason for that is that there is no such thing. No, I mean, it's whatever fits your particular situation, and that's based on a lot of different factors. So your insurance agent, your financial advisor, they need to understand you and your situation and get the right kinds of coverages in place. Then I suppose if that happened, then you would be full coverage. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
I mean,
so
maybe the
sure.
definition of full coverage is you have something.
Right.
Okay, so Lisa's, life products are a little bit different. On the property and casualty side, you have to have certain coverage. So the state says this is what you need for your car, and your lender says this is what you need for your home or
That's
your
right.
condo, right?
Yeah.
And so there are ways to say, okay, I've got the basics covered. But for instance, on an automobile policy here in California, you must have 1530 liability, 15,000 per person, 30,000 per automobile. If that's all you have, and by the way, it's 1530 liability and it's 5,000 property damage.
Okay.
So that's a car you run into. So I have the only car on the freeway that is worth less than $5,000, which means if I hit somebody with a car that's worth twice my car and I only have 5,000 in coverage, insurance company gives them $5,000, I have to come up with the rest.
Yeah.
So
It's
minimum
limiting
coverage
your
is what?
risk. You're limiting your risk,
Okay.
right? You're not covering the entire risk most of the time. I mean, that's not to say that you can't, but
Now, I have a question from someone tweeted, and they asked, does farmers insurance cover trailers?
Absolutely. So they're talking either a travel or utility trailer,
Mhm.
we got you covered. Bump, ba-dum, bump, 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 bump. How's that?
I like that. I like that. I like that. I'm gonna have you do that again.
Thank you.
Right now, we're on Accelerated Radio Praise, 24-hour gospel music and talk. If you want to call us, it's at 323-238-0445 with any questions and comments. You can listen on www.acceleratedradio.net and tune in every Friday. I'm Miss Charlene, and this is Lunch with the Finance Bunch. I'm really enjoying this show. I really am. We're going to come back in just a moment and have Lisa talk to us about the types of insurance the other types of insurance that you may need to look into having, and that's life insurance and what that is about, how much we need, and all those questions. Lisa, do you think you can handle it?
I think I can handle that. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so Mike, I do have one more question for you before we switch over and have Lisa take over. When someone comes to you to cover a motorcycle, let's say, motorcycle coverage, and they've been in an accident or two on a motorcycle, and they still need coverage, What is farmers' take on a motorcyclist who's had more than one accident, like multiple accidents? What is their philosophy on coverage? Because I just see that as being such high risk, and then if it proves that the risk has been, has happened.
Right.
What does farmers say about that?
Well, here's the thing. When you're talking about any sort of motor vehicle insurance coverage, there's a couple of different things that drive the total premium. A major one is your driving record. First of all, if you had multiple accidents on a motorcycle, I think you need to get a car.
Me too.
Yeah, because it's
That's
probably,
what I thought.
yeah, there's something just telling you,
Just saying,
you're not made to ride two wheels.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, or at least get one of those three-wheeler
Three-wheeler.
spiders, yeah, something like that. So I would be, so without knowing really enough,
Right.
the issue is going to be this. They're going to have marks on their driving record. The cleaner the driving record, the lower the premium. So the spottier the driving record, the higher the premium. It's going to depend if this person they're just an accident magnet and they're getting hit, that's one thing. If they're being reckless and they're doing 150 miles an hour and they're running into the back of a car, if they get hurt or hurting someone or a passenger gets hurt, totally different. The moment you put bodily injury into play, you can expect to pay significantly more for your motor vehicle insurance. If you're only damaging property, it's significantly less, but it's not as inexpensive as having a total driving record. So it's not necessarily Farmers' philosophy. There are insurance companies that will always cover you. Farmers actually we actually have a company called Bristol West that's under the Farmers banner that specializes in people who are really lousy drivers.
Okay.
So they can still get insurance, they're gonna pay through the nose, you
Right.
can still get it. A lot of companies will disqualify you because
Completely.
you got a
That's
bad
why I
driving
asked.
record. Yeah. So, I mean, any major offense, if you, a high-speed pursuit, yeah, you're gonna have a hard time getting insurance. If it's just a serious of fender benders, you should be okay. It's gonna cost you a little bit more, but over time it will go down if your driving record gets back to being clean, if you avoid accidents for a period of time.
There's one other thing you said that I talked about in Lindy, because when I refer someone to an insurance agent, I talk to them about having multiple policies with that one agency, because it allows you to bring the premiums down and get discounts. Like, so if you have homeowners insurance and your car is insured by the same person, you talked about that earlier, that it could give you a discount on the total package, where if you had them individually, it would cost you a little bit more.
Absolutely. So, for instance, a homeowner that has both their automobile and their car with Farmers, the homeowner's policy will enjoy a 25% discount, so will the automobile premium. If you have something like a trailer, or you have a toy like an ATV, or even a golf cart, something like a golf cart,
Or my motorcycle.
another 5% off, or your motorcycle. And then they all share in that, because now it's multiple product lines within the family. We're able to bring it down. We understand you more. We know your risk more. We've already qualified you. We know what your habits are. Insurance Lisa will tell you it's the law of large numbers, right? It's this. Farmers has been around since 1928. They've insured so many people. They can tell what's going to happen with people with certain occupations, certain driving habits, certain ages. They can just tell. They can tell you how long you're going to live. They can tell you what kind of driver you're going to be based off of the fact that you're a lawyer or a teacher or a forklift driver. They know all that stuff. It's just based on large numbers. Yeah, I once looked to see how long I was going to live.
You didn't like the number?
No, I didn't like the number. I thought it
That
was
just
good.
meant you need to change some things in your lifestyle, maybe.
Exactly.
So no more.
No more nachos. Yeah, I know.
Lisa, so on the insurance side that you pretty much focus on, not just focus on, but the part I wanted to listen to hear about is life insurance or the lack thereof.
So I focus on life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, investments, and annuities. In the life insurance world, you're really talking about protecting what's important to you, right? So it can be an asset class, so that's something to think about, but it's certainly not the main purpose. The main purpose is to make sure that there's a pool of money there for the people, for the things that you need. So for instance, if you have bought a house and you've got it, your homeowner's insurance with Mike and everything is great, if something were to happen to you, how would your family stay in that house? If you have life insurance that covers the mortgage, for instance, or you may be able to pay off that house. If something were to happen to you, your heirs would be able to pay off that house and keep living in it, keep living in the style in which you've accustomed them to. You might even get enough insurance to cover a certain number of years of your income so that they can be stable and stay in their own environment. You know, they're already going through a very, very difficult time in losing you, very emotional time. It's really hard, I see families, when you add a financial burden to that. And all of a sudden they've got to figure out where they're going to move to, and if they've got to go to different schools and all of those kinds of things. So you really can protect them at a very, very low cost and help to keep them in their life, you know.
Another question I have, and it's for single people, because for some reason, some singles don't think they need insurance. They think, oh, it's just me. I like my insurance for me. And young people also, they get to an age where they're, even if they are or aren't on their parents' insurance policies, you know, kind of speak to that, you know, for a young person, because I don't know, they a lot of times think it's not in their budget or whatever, and I don't know that the cost is that evasive or offensive.
No, it's not. I mean, the cost of life insurance, especially on a young person, is very, very low. And it really, you know, that's why it's so important to sit down with an agent and talk about what your goals are, what's really important to you, what kinds of debts might you have, you know, liabilities. Do you own a home where you have a mortgage? Do you have a car payment? Do you have medical bills, credit card bills? You know, you want to make sure that those things get taken care of, that your funeral expenses and those kinds of things are taken care of. I have a life insurance policy on my daughter. I've had it on her since she was, goodness, maybe 2 years old, I guess. And it's doing two things. It's there as a protection in case something ever did happen to her, God forbid. But also, it's there growing in cash value so that, you know, she's going to be going to college very soon now. It's very exciting.
Very soon.
And so,
Very soon.
it's kind of scary. But there'll be money there for her to help with those costs. And, you know, if she wants to get married someday, that's, I've always, you know, saying to her that that's the wedding fund.
Right.
You know, so, you know, those are all important life events, you know, buying her first car, those kinds of things. It's really, it can be a great tool to help you in saving for various reasons. And the nice thing about it is that you don't have to apply for a loan, you don't have to qualify, it's just there for whatever purpose you want to use it for.
So that, as you were talking about that speaks to single parents also.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Who may, you know, or may not be in a position to, in their mind, send their child to college or pay for their wedding when they get married, or buy them a car, and you know, all these thoughts start coming up. Once you're holding that little bundle of joy, you know, you feel like, oh, I'm gonna pay for these things.
All that promise right
All
there.
that promise
One little
right
bundle.
there,
Yep.
right? And so then how? And then, so kind of talk to that a little bit. Like a single parent, you know, 2 children, 1 4, 1 6 years old, and they want these kids to go to college. What type of insurance policy should they talk about, or talk to you about, or should you talk to them about getting that would provide those things?
Well, again, there's many factors there at play that I would need to, you know, look at their
Of course.
individual situation. But just as a generality, I would say that you want to make sure that you've got enough that's going to provide a monthly income for those children for their care and maintenance. You want to make sure that there's also enough there if you would like to try to either supplement or pay for their college education. So you're usually talking about some combination of term insurance and permanent insurance. And what does that mean, right?
Yeah, that was my next question.
I knew it would be. Term insurance is like renting an apartment. As long as you pay that premium every month or every year, however you want to set it up, if something happens to you, it will pay out a certain amount to your beneficiaries, okay? There's no cash value associated with it. But the nice thing about it is that, especially if your income is on the lower side and you just need to have as much coverage as you can get for a low cost, term insurance is a great way to go. Then you have permanent insurance. And what we're talking about there is something like whole life or universal life or variable universal life. There's lots of them out there. And what that does is it provides some kind of a cash value, some sort of an investment vehicle within the policy that's going to gain in value. And so that's where you get kind of the double hit, where you are, it's kind of like buying a home, right? You're building up equity in that home every time you pay a premium. In other words, every time you pay a premium or in a home, a mortgage payment, you're building up equity, or in life insurance, it's called cash value. So I would say for a single parent, 2 children, probably are looking at needing some kind of a term policy initially, and then maybe later down the line as your situation changes and improves, you might look at converting part of it to a permanent policy, or even right off the bat buying a small permanent policy just to start that kind of cash value fund starting to grow.
Okay, because you know how what disturbs me when I see people out trying to raise money to various persons. You know, they'll be having a car wash or something to raise the money, or they're borrowing money from family members. When it could have been taken care of if they had this information, to know that it's not as expensive as you think, and to talk to a professional. A conversation is free.
It's free.
And that's the thing that I think people kind of shy away because they don't know. To talk to either one of you, the conversation is free. So if you have a insurance person that you know, or if you don't, and you want to talk to either Lisa or talk to Mike, you can. Just write down the phone number and give them a call, and they'll go in depth. This is just an overview, just to kind of paint a picture of some of the things that we need to do, because we're talking about building and maintaining wealth, and there are different aspects of that. And insurance, different aspects of insurance are certainly a part of that. So Lisa, do you want to give us a phone number where we can reach you?
Sure, you can reach me. I'll give you my cell phone as well, just like Mike did.
Okay.
I'm out in the field a lot seeing clients. My number is 323-252-8589. You didn't get that the first time? That's 323-252-8589. And if you'd like to email me, you can email me at LM, as in May, Shaver, SHAVER, like shaving your face, at F as in Frank, T as in Tom, .newyorklife.com. And I'm happy to help, and the first consultation is absolutely free.
So we got some good information on here, I think. And so I like, sometimes I know I'm in a car or I'm sitting down and I'm so busy paying attention to what's being said that the numbers go by me, and I run and get that pen while you're talking. And then when I get back, you're finished. And I'm like, oh, I wish they'd say it again. So please, it may seem repetitive to you, but trust me, there's somebody out there that just found their pen and their piece of paper, and they want to write these numbers down.
They're not driving, are they? Because I'm very nervous if they're not paying attention to
not
the
while you're
road.
driving.
Pay
I
attention
forgot.
to the
I was
road.
talking to insurance people. No, they're not driving. They're sitting somewhere safe.
Okay, they pulled over.
They pulled over,
Yeah.
and they're now writing.
Yeah.
So, Mike?
My phone number is 818-835-0456.
Okay, and Miss Lisa?
323-252-8589.
Good. Now, we talked briefly before you came on the show, and there's something that I asked both of you, and that is, we're going to let the lady go first. This lady's first. And he's a gentleman.
He is.
Yeah.
Rosemary did a good job.
Absolutely. Say hi again to Rosemary.
Hi, Mom.
So, Lisa, I'm going to say hi to our friend too, because he's probably listening to Daddy on.
Hi, Ron.
There you go. So that's special in her life. I know.
Yeah.
Lisa's getting married.
May 2nd.
May 2nd. Lisa's getting married. Yay. Okay. Did we get all?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did. Okay, sorry. Okay, let's get back on track. So, Lisa, if what are some things that you would like the listener to know, or questions you think they should ask when they sit down and meet with an insurance agent? What are some of the things that you think that get left out, that people don't think to ask, don't know to ask, or are afraid to ask about coverage?
About the agent or about their coverage or, yeah, okay.
About
so
the agent. What do they need to know about the agent?
Well,
Are they licensed is a good question.
That's the first one I would say, is that are you licensed? What kinds of licenses do you have? What can you do? You know, because if you're not licensed, you shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And how long have you been doing what you do? How long have you been in the business? What kind of clients do you specialize in? You know, what kind of insurances do you specialize in? Investments do you specialize in? And then just to make sure, you know, really have a conversation, get to know them so that you can see if they're a good fit for you. You know, you don't have to do business with the one that's in front of you. You can interview several and decide who's a good fit for you, because this is a person really that should be in your life for a long time. They should be doing annual reviews with you. They should be, it should be somebody you feel comfortable calling and saying, hey, I'm getting married, hey, we're having a baby, we're buying a house, we're losing the house, we're doing, you know, this, we're doing that, we're buying a car, what do I do? Should I lease? Should I buy? What should I do? So these are all things that you need to feel comfortable giving. They're a resource to you, and you need to feel very comfortable giving them a call and telling them whatever's going on in your life so they can give you proper recommendations.
And when we talked earlier about, you know, the advantages of having a professional agent, if you call an 800 number, you're not going to be able to get that advisor role. They can tell you certain things about their products, but you want someone that knows the picture now, the vision that you're trying to take it to, and help you navigate the roadmap to get where you want to go. And there's a couple different
That's
ways
right.
to do it, but an 800 number is
Yeah.
rarely an efficient way to do it.
No, or the internet, that's not a good way to do it. The person who's sitting in your living room should be listening to you, not talking to you. They may spend 15, 20 minutes telling you about themselves and the company and how their process works. But the rest of the time really should be focused on you and your family, where your goals are, what your current situation is, and then they'll go back to their office and figure out how to get you where you want to go.
I agree completely. I completely agree. And we're listening to Accelerated Radio. This is Ms. Charlene, Lunch with the Finance Fund. We have Lisa and Mike in the station today, and I'm really happy you guys are here. I'm really excited about this because insurance is something that is extremely, extremely important to every person alive. And hopefully it was important to those who are no longer, because their families are the ones who are left to either clean up the mess or, you know, be able to move on.
Yeah, you're leaving a legacy either way. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to leave a legacy that says that I love you, I took care of things for you, I'm not leaving you with a big burden, I'm leaving you taken care of, and so that you can move on with your life, you know? That's the kind of legacy I want to leave, and that's what I've set up my stuff to do.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Fear really stops people from doing things. You hear the nightmare stories. A gentleman died and left his family, and they had no insurance, or they had such minimal insurance and only covered his funeral, and now his wife is struggling with the children because she's a single parent now, you know, or that person bought a brand new car and didn't have gap insurance, and the car gets wiped out, no fault of theirs. They went in their house and went to sleep and woke up and had no car, right? So these things in life can happen, and you want to be prepared for them, and you want to have an insurance person at your side who can guide you through those things. So those are some of the people that I have sitting here in the station with me today that are talking to you about this. So if you have a pen or a pencil, sit down and write this number down. Mike, Farmers Insurance.
818-835-0456.
Lisa.
323-252-8589.
Wonderful. And tomorrow morning you can tune in from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and continue to talk about risk management, because the Coco Show, which comes on tomorrow morning from 9 to 10, will have Judge Lisa on, and she's going to talk about, risk management also.
That's
So that's
not me.
going to be a good show. No, Lisa's
You're
not
not
a judge
judgmental.
yet. No, she's not. I like that.
She's a good
I love
judge of
Lisa.
character,
She's a good
though.
judge of character,
Yeah,
though.
but she
She's
likes
not
us.
judgmental, right?
No,
And
not
she's not a judge.
judgmental,
Right.
no.
Absolutely. But please listen to the Popo Show tomorrow morning, and that's from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. because the judge, Lisa, will be on, and they're going to be talking about risk management, and it's going to be a really good show. I got a little preview of that show just here listening, and it's going to be a great show. Great show. So again, you're listening to Accelerated Radio. I'm Miss Charlene, and you're listening to Lunch with the Finance Bunch. And you can reach me, or at least listen in and listen to me every Friday at noon. Every Friday at noon, I'll have guests on, and then we'll be talking about different aspects of finance. We'll be talking about wealth management. We'll be talking about maintaining wealth, not only getting to it, but how do you maintain it? Because there's no sadder story than one of a person who got to where they wanted to be and couldn't maintain it because they didn't get the education they needed along the way, and they didn't have the tools and the people in place to guide them and help them not just build wealth, but sustain it. Now that's a sad story.
It is, and Charlene, I commend you for doing what you're doing because I think in a lot of cases, people want to do the right thing, and nobody likes to feel like they admit that they don't know something.
Exactly.
And again, when you're talking about taxes and estate planning and life insurance and property and casualty insurance, people know these terms, are familiar with them. It's in the news, or they talk to their colleagues, but they may not know that next step to talk to somebody. And it's not that they can't figure it out, but unless they want to invest the time to become an agent, get your state license, and then go through all the continuing education, that's what people like us are for. We've done that for you. So you can be the school teacher or the fireman or the store owner that you want to be, because that's what you do. We can't do that for you, but we can help you not worry about stuff in life.
And that's the point, to not have to worry about your stuff, your people, the children, your family members, all of the people and things that you care about can be covered by the people in this room. Absolutely.
When I have mortgage questions, I go to you. When
That's
I have
right.
when I have renters and car, I go to Mike. I don't
That's
try
right.
to do that myself.
Exactly, and people need to know the vast array of people that are around them, and like Lisa said, her first consultation with you is free. Call her, she'll sit down with you, she'll go over what you need. Mike said the same thing, even if you have insurance, it doesn't hurt to ask to make sure you're covered properly. And here we have two people who are willing to sit down and have those conversations with you. Do I take advantage of it? So before we wrap up here, I'm going to give you guys one more chance to write down those phone numbers. So Mike, give us your number before we wrap up.
Phone number is 818-835-0456.
One more time.
818-835-0456.
Lisa?
323-252-8589, and I will also review any life insurance policies you may currently have, including through your employer, so that you really understand what you have and what it's supposed to do for you.
Wow. Thank you both for coming on the show. I think this was a great one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.